Howdy folks, my name is Ainsley Burns, and I am a first-year graduate student at Texas A&M pursuing my master's in agricultural leadership, education, and communications with an emphasis in leadership. Today, we will be discussing information technology in the dairy industry and perceived behavioral control as a reusable learning object project for ALEC 640 Methods of Tech Change. We will start by discussing our objective, have an introduction, discuss information technologies and dairy farming, cover the theory of planned behavior, more specifically the perceived behavioral control portion, talk about application, and then you'll have an opportunity to apply. After you apply, we'll conclude and then have references. So why are you here? By the end of participation in this RLO, you will be able to accurately explain an example of perceived behavioral control in action. So, what is information technology? Information technology is a broad term used to describe a variety of individual technologies. 3 of these technologies being introduced to the dairy industry are the Internet of Things, computer vision, and artificial intelligence. Internet of Things is also known as IoTs, and these refer to a system of devices that communicate with one another, such as smartphones and smartwatches. Computer vision is a form of AI, and it's related to the way that AI interprets data. These technologies allow farmers to integrate modern technology into traditional farming practices. The process of incorporating new technologies into modern practice is better known as precision agriculture. With climate change, a growing world population, and consumer perceptions of agriculture, now more than ever, we need sustainable growing practices in agriculture. The introduction of these new technologies means that farmers are more efficient and sustainable, which aids the economy and the environment. These technologies work together to add efficiency in agriculture and allow food producers to make educated, data-driven decisions. These technologies are pretty new in the ag industry, and we're not yet seeing them be widespread in use. So, what does this look like on a dairy farm? The cows have special collars that work kind of like smartwatches, such as a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. These collars collect biometric data on cow health, milk production, and feed consumption. They sync with robotic milkers that use the data collected by the collars for milking. If you look closely at the picture, you'll notice that the cows have collars around their necks. In addition to milking, these technologies also aid in herd health. One example of this is detecting mastitis. Mastitis is an infection in the teat that can make cows incredibly sick. With this new technology, we can detect mastitis by reading temperatures in the very early stages of infection. This allows us to begin treating the infection before the cow has even started showing symptoms. In addition, when cows are sick, their milk must be thrown out to avoid making consumers sick. This can be costly when farmers have to throw out a large reserve of milk because they found out that a cow is sick. The IoTs and AI aid in reducing this cost by catching the illness early on. When farmers are milking manually, it can be easy to mix up ear tags and accidentally add a sick cow's milk to the main reserve, which also results in wasted milk and profit loss. The robotic milkers eliminate this chance of accidental contamination. The collars keep track of what cows are sick and communicate this to the robotic milking machine. The robotic milking machine keeps the sick cow's milk in a canister separate from the main herds. We will now watch a video from a farmer explaining in more detail how this works on his dairy.
Before the robotic milkers went in, it was a lot more labor intensive. And that was part of the reason we decided to go with the robotic milking. Our goal with the robots is to make it easier for the people that are doing the work, take advantage of that technology, but we can do it in a safe and healthy manner for the cows. They can lay down, eat. If they want to get up and go get milk, they can do so, and it's open for business 24/7. So the cow comes in the box, and it'll immediately start dropping feed for her to eat. Most of the time that keeps them really calm. They don't really move a whole lot when they're eating. As soon as she's in, the washing brush will come in. There's 2 brushes on there that spin. There's a disinfectant solution on the brushes. So that's the part that's kind of replacing the pre-dipping and the wiping that we did in the traditional milking parlor. So the brushes come in, they hit each quarter 2 times, come out and rinse, and then go back in, hit each quarter 1 more time, and then it blows air on it to dry it. The brushes go out, and then the arm comes back in and gets ready to attach the unit. So it kind of starts kind of low, and it will scan, uses a laser, and then it'll attach the unit one at a time. As the cow milks out, it's measuring milk flow on individual quarters. One of the advantages to the robots over our old way of milking was, in the past, we would take the whole unit off at one time. In the robot, we take each individual quarter off as it gets done. Then once all the units are off, they kind of fold forward to keep them out of the way and clean, and then it'll spray an iodine post-dip solution on each quarter. Arm moves out of the way, gate opens, out she goes, next cow comes in.
Now, we are going to switch gears for a minute. The theory of planned behavior, created by Isaac Eisen and published in 1991, states that if we can predict someone's intention, we can then predict their behavior. Eisen found that intention was determined by 3 factors: attitude toward the behavior, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. These 3 factors interact with each other to inform an individual's intention. To predict these 3 components, we use data that already exists to inform our predictions. This theory allows us to predict anything from election results to whether someone will buy an apple at the store. It also provides us the data we need so we know how to approach convincing an individual to adopt a change in behavior. Today, we will focus on perceived behavioral control and what this means for agriculture, specifically the precision dairy industry. Perceived behavioral control refers to the consumer's perception of the innovation's ease of use. Consumers determine their behavior based on previous experiences and predicted difficulties. This component is unique compared to the other 2 components because external factors can impact it. For example, I have the desire to cook with high-quality, whole ingredients. However, as a grad student, my budget and time greatly impact my ability to do this. Even though I want to change my behavior to use better ingredients, I often cannot afford them, nor do I have the time to cook for every meal. Even though the desire to change is present, I am lacking the resources of the time and money required to make this change. This means that my actual control is very low. Actual control refers to an individual's objective resources and opportunities. When actual and perceived control align, a behavior change is likely. If actual and perceived control do not align, the behavior change will likely not be adopted, even if the subjective norms and attitude align. This concept of perceived behavioral control is also related to Bandura's idea of perceived self-efficacy. Generally speaking, the more confidence someone has that they are capable of making the change in behavior, the more likely they are to successfully make the change in behavior. If I am trying to decide between cooking 2 new dishes, and I am confident I can make one, but not confident I can make the other, I am much more likely to cook the dish I am confident I can make. In addition to this, people with higher self-efficacy are more likely to have high resilience. This also makes them more likely to pursue a change in behavior. Because outside factors influence perceived behavioral control, we can manipulate this perception by providing support in the form of resources that support where the individual is struggling. This may look like training for people lacking the technical knowledge required for a change in behavior, or offering a payment plan for someone who cannot afford a large lump sum for a product. This allows us to guide consumers to the desired change in behavior by helping to eliminate barriers. In the video, we heard the farmer state that one of the main reasons for adopting was reduced labor. He focuses on the efficiency he gains by using the IoTs and AI of a robotic dairy. His perceived behavioral control and actual control were in alignment. He had the knowledge, skills, and resources, as well as the desire to adopt the change. This example was very straightforward, but it's not always black and white. Last October, I toured a robotic dairy farm in Illinois that is much like the one shown in the video. That's actually where the photo on the slides is from. This farm is run by an older gentleman who is not technologically savvy. In addition to syncing to the robotic milkers, the collars also sync to a computer program run off of a desktop that allows the farmer to view the data that's been collected. This Illinois farmer perceived this technology as difficult to use because he did not possess the knowledge of computers required to use it, so he was hesitant to adopt the robotic milking system. However, his grandson, who helps with the dairy, is good with computers. The resource of his grandson allowed this farmer to change his view on the computer program to something feasible for their farm. Without the resource of his grandson, this farmer very likely would not have adopted the robotic milking system and IoTs. This is an example of how outside factors such as technical knowledge and access to resources impact perceived behavioral control. Without the necessary resources, consumers will not change behavior even if the change is desirable. Now it's your turn. We've talked about what all of these technologies are, but also what perceived behavioral control is. So take a moment to scan the QR code and provide an example of a time you have seen perceived behavioral control in action. Be sure to provide a short description of the scenario and how it relates to perceived behavioral control. When you're finished, please return to the video. So why do we care about this? As stated before, precision farming practices are more sustainable and economical in the long run. Being able to predict behavior in agriculture is important for two main reasons. The first is that implementing new practices with farmers, and the second is encouraging consumers to support those new farming practices. In order to feed a growing world population, we will need to continue increasing our sustainability with food production practices. This means convincing farmers to change the way they are farming. In some cases, this may mean asking individuals to change the way that things have been done for generations. Being able to predict farmer behavior based on existing data is important because it needs to inform how we go about convincing farmers to adopt these new practices. We should alter our approach by highlighting available resources that would aid them in the adoption of their behavior. For example, if we have a farmer who struggles with technology, we can tell them in the pitch for the product that there are YouTube tutorials for anything they need, or that they have access to 24/7 tech support through the company. On the flip side, it does us no good to convince farmers to adopt new practices without ensuring that consumers will be willing to support new production practices in their food system. It is just as important to collect and use consumer data to predict how consumers will react to changes in their food systems. Chick-fil-A is a great example of how not stopping to predict consumer behavior can backfire on a company. Over the summer, Chick-fil-A switched their policy from using chickens grown with no antibiotics ever to no antibiotics important to human medicine because of supply chain issues. Chick-fil-A received massive backlash from consumers over this decision. The agriculture industry already knows that consumers react strongly to labels such as antibiotics on their food. Had Chick-fil-A used existing data and knowledge to evaluate how to approach the situation, they may have taken a different approach. For example, they may have released a commercial that taught consumers the difference between labels and why farmers use antibiotics in the first place. By teaching consumers about labels via the commercial, they would be providing consumers with a resource to help them make educated decisions. This likely would have created a better reaction from consumers, and they likely would have been more open to the changes. Understanding perceived behavioral control is important so that we can predict human behavior. By using perceived behavioral control to predict changes in behavior, we can alter the way we approach sensitive topics, such as feeding our families, in order to create an industry that is sustainable for the environment and the economy. These are the references that were used in creating this reusable learning object. Click the DOI links to access the articles and learn more about information technologies, IoTs and AI in the dairy industry, and the theory of planned behavior. Thank you for your time.